What is up guys, Alex from Lakey Wargames here and welcome to today's video where we're going to be going into the faction pack for Nighthaunt here in Age of Sigmar 4th edition. We finally have all of the rules in that big PDF, no more tiny little piecemeal faction focus articles with zero context and out of place rules that we don't have the full picture for. It's finally here in its full glory and we're going to do a big sweep through of the entire Nighthaunt faction and giving my first impressions and thoughts on things in this faction pack. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to say, in the words of context of going through and reviewing and kind of again giving my first impressions of this faction pack, I have had a quick glance through the PDF just once, just so to sort of know the basis of things that we're going to be wanting to cover, but I haven't play tested anything. Obviously these are all still brand new to me as they are to everyone else. I didn't really look at any of the leaks or anything. I saw some of the scrolls, like the Black Coach scroll came out I think like 2-3 days before this came out, but I didn't bother looking at any of the other leaks because, well, I just wanted to wait for the official word in case you don't know how accurate these things are going to be sometimes unless they're actual full-on documentations. So this is going to be said, you know, my impressions of these things. If I think something's good or I think it's not as good, there is no grounds to things. I haven't play tested any of these units, so time will be the teller of these things. This is purely my kind of on initial, how it looks on paper, what I think looking at it on the off, and as always, after we start playing games and getting used to things and seeing how the meta shakes out, it could all completely 180 and everything that I think is good could actually be terrible and vice versa. And I would love to hear your opinions down below. Let me know what you think of certain units and things, and if I get something slightly wrong. It's the same with the full core rules. I have been reading through them. Every now and then I still get things a little muddled up as things have changed with this brand new 4th edition. And I'm going to do my best to not compare things back to the 3rd edition because everything is so dramatically different. You know, it's one of those, it's weird things. It's like when you've lived somewhere for 5-10 years and then you move away and then you come back, you know, for whatever reason, and you walk in those streets that you used to live on. It's like, this feels familiar, but it's not the same. And that's how it kind of is with 4th edition. So we don't want to be getting too hung up on, you know, things that were, and we're just going to go on with what things are. And I'm now just babbling, so I'm going to shut up and get on with this faction pack review. So let's get on into it and dive on into that first page. So first thing we have here are the battle traits. So we have Ethereal, which is what we sort of know and love as all. It's just ignore modifiers to save rolls, positive and negative. For Nighthaunt units, excluding Nagash, so it's nice that that's actually sort of tidied up and put on there because there's all the confusion. I believe Nagash's scroll, we'll get to that when we get to it, but he's actually written into all of the different death factions now, so he's got his own thing rather than the mess that was before where he kept getting updated and he was like keyworded but it didn't work and it was just weird. So it's nice to have that in there. So all Nighthaunt, yeah, Ethereal, cool. Discorporate is now a command ability. That's what this little 1 up here in this circle means. So that's going to cost you 1 CP to use, just like it was before. It's a reaction ability, opponent declared an attack ability. We discorporate. Friendly Nighthaunt unit that's targeted by an attack, you get a 5+ ward, so that's kind of just how we are used to seeing it. These bits we saw in the faction focus, and it's basically what our old wave of terror used to be has now been sort of changed. So we still have shriek. We don't want to streak. I mean, that would be a different ability. We've got Shriek, Stun, and Petrify that kind of do the same things. They are limited now to the different units. So this one is any Nighthaunt unit, and you subtract 1 from hit rolls for the target that you've shrieked. Stun can now only be used by war machines and cavalry. And you -1 to the enemy save rolls. Cavalry are what you would expect, so that is your Dreadblade Harrows, your Hex Wraiths, the mounted Knight of Shrouds, so the one on the Ethereal Steed, and war machines are the Black Coach and Aurich the Drowner, and I believe that is everybody. Oh, and Reikenor as well. Reikenor is cavalry as well, I believe. So they're the only ones that can actually pick this up, so it's a very limited pool of getting -1 to save. These are only usable once per turn, so basically when you have a unit that fits that bill, so like here if you've got a war machine or a cavalry. In your charge phase, you just pick one unit to do this the once. There's no more stacking, like multiple stuns or anything like that. You can have one shriek, one stun, and one petrify, and that is it. You can stack multiple things together. So if you had a unit that can shriek and a different unit that could stun, then you can shriek and stun the same target, but you can't multiple stun, you can't multiple shriek, because they're all once per turn, but you can do all three of them once. If that makes sense. So, and we've also got Petrify, which is a friendly Nighthaunt hero that is not used in Aura of Dread ability this turn, and you give them Strike Last, which is cool. And there seems to be a lot of Strike First, Strike Last going on, so the reaction wars, as they used to be called in 2nd edition, are definitely back. It's going to be a lot of, you know, trying to get those timings in and making sure you're fighting with the units in the order that you want them to be. And the last one here, the actual is now called Wave of Terror itself. There's friendly Nighthaunt units that are in combat can use charge abilities this phase. However, if a unit is in combat, uses a charge ability, and the charge roll is 3 or less, that unit does not count as having charged. So that basically is, because this is all our battle traits, they're all here on one page, we no longer have retreat and charge built in to Ethereal. This will allow us to charge without actually having to move our units backwards. So if you say turn 1, you charge some Bladegeist Revenants into a unit of squigs, then you're in combat, you know, no one wiped anyone out, etc, etc. You get to turn 2, because you're not you can retreat out as a normal retreat move, but then you're taking the D3 mortal wounds, and then you won't be able to charge because retreat and charge isn't built in anymore. Then yeah, you could do that, but this just means that if you're in combat with someone, you can basically just charge from where you are, make the charge roll. If it's 3 or less, then you don't go anywhere, but if not, if you rolled high enough, you could charge out of that combat and into a different combat, or you could use this as sort of a glorified pile-in move. And because most of our units, I believe all of our units, say most, all of our units are still keyworded with fly, so where you could pile in with this, so if you roll like a 7, you can move 7 inches in that combat because you're using the charge ability, but that means you must still end up in combat because obviously you can't roll for a charge and then not, like, just use it as a move. So this is basically like glorified pile in, or you can use it to charge a different unit if you're already stuck in combat. So it's slightly different, but this is really cool, and this one, like the others, is only once per turn, but it affects all friendly Nighthaunt units that are in combat, so that's really cool. So if you're still engaged in combat, then you are going to get some sort of sneaky movement shenanigans going on with that one. And I really like this change, so that's a nice thing, because it means, you know, retreating and charging every single unit. A lot of our stuff had abilities on the charge, and with my quick flick through, it still looks like that way, like we still want to be aggressive, still want to be charging all the time, and this here is going to allow us to do that, so we won't get bogged down, even though we've lost the sort of board wide retreat and charge. But that does come back slightly in a faction, battle formation, basically the sub faction. There is one that allows us to retreat and charge, but if you don't have that, then you can still get your charges off even if you're stuck in combat with an enemy, which is nice. And the Shriek, Stun and Petrify I really like. They're nice and powerful. It's sort of the trade-off that now we can't stack multiple versions of the one. I know obviously like Stun would be really nice, getting multiple -1 to saves, but the thing is now it's no longer random, because it used to be on the little table, and whatever you rolled to charge, you'd pick a different one. So that's nice, like getting the Strike Last. You know you can guarantee this now. If you've got a hero and your hero is going to be charging, you can guarantee to get that Petrify off, you can guarantee to Shriek a target. So there's less of them, but they're more in your control. So it's a nice trade-off, that, and I like it a lot. Still being able to get 3 of them, as long as you've got the different units that can do each. And Shriek is obviously open to everyone, because that's just pick a friendly Nighthaunt unit, so that could be anyone. These ones, you're going to have to make sure you've got heroes or cavalry and war machines about for these stronger buffs or debuffs to the enemy. But yeah, I really like these changes. Discorporate and Ethereal, still pretty much what they always were. Like I said, on Ethereal, we lost the retreat and charge bit, but we'll get to that in this next section, which is here, battle formations. So let's start off at the top here. Vanishing Phantasms. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt unit that is not in combat. to use this ability, remove that unit from the battlefield and set it up again more than 9 inches from all enemy units. And it's a core keyword, so when you use your core abilities in like the movement phase, so that includes things like retreat, run, just actually moving is now a core ability. So basically you'll be using this teleport instead of any of your other movement shenanigans. It's pretty cool, but the fact that you have to be not in combat, this is going to be really good for like backboarding battle tactics. So there's one, it's take their lands, so you have to take a terrain piece that's in the enemy territory, or things like take the flanks, so you have a unit on either side of the short edges of the board. So that's going to be really nice, sort of opening turns, sort of setting things up for later on. But the fact that you have to be not in combat means as soon as your lines clash or you get tagged by anything, if the enemy manages to charge you, then this is not going to be as useful, but it would be totally overpowered if we could just teleport like from anywhere, even in combat. So I totally understand that one. So I think this is cool, and it's going to help set up a few things. It will be really helpful for units like Craven Throne Guard, popping around, being able to teleport and shoot things from all over the show. But you're going to have to make sure that you can not get tagged in combat, because again, once you're in combat you won't be able to teleport, and then you're stuck to your usual sort of being able to only retreat, etc. So it's not terrible, but I think some of these other ones here that we're going to get into are probably nicer choices. Speaking of which, let's talk about Hunters of the Accursed. So this is pick 3 enemy heroes, each within 12 inches of a different friendly Nighthaunt hero to be the target. Roll a d3 for each target. On a 2+, inflict that amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. So that's kind of cool. Being able to target up to 3 heroes and do d3 mortal damage on them. Obviously this is part of the new thing that they've got now, where it's only on a 2+, so if, you know, 1/3 of the time when you roll that 1, it's not going to do anything, but doing 2 or 3 mortal damage on up to 3 different heroes is nice. A lot of our heroes look like they want to be very aggressive this time around, so that's going to be good, because you're going to want to be getting closer to get your abilities off. And as enemy heroes come into you, then you're going to be able to do some damage onto them. I do like the look of that one. There's a lot less mortal wounds spamming than we used to have. Obviously we used to have the the Emerald Host, and we used to have the Curse effect, which was just kind of like board wide, just ticking down units. But now it's only limited to heroes, and you have to be within 12 inches. So it's kind of good for punishing the enemy heroes for getting too close to your heroes. So that could be good, being able to do that damage, because mortal wounds are just a lot less in the game. So that could be nice. I'm not too sure about that one. And it's only once per turn at the end of any turn. So it could be ticking over quite a fair few times throughout a game, and that's definitely going to hurt a lot of like small 5 wound heroes, as long as you can be getting close to them. But again, probably going to be wanting to be getting aggressive anyway, so that might be a nice pick, but we'll have to see. Deathstalkers, this one here is my favourite, and probably I would say the strongest out of the others. The others are all great if you're building around them. But Deathstalkers is friendly Nighthaunt units can use charge abilities even if they've used a run or retreat ability in the same turn. In addition, no mortal damage is inflicted on friendly Nighthaunt units by retreating. So retreating now, you take d3 mortal wounds if you retreat, and after you've retreated you can't shoot or charge. Kind of like how it used to be, but obviously now you're taking mortal wounds for coming out of combat. So first off, ignoring the mortal damage, being able to retreat is great. Being able to retreat and charge is even better, and then being able to run and charge is like icing on top of icing for me in that one. So it gives us back our retreat and charge, so like we were talking about before, with the new wave of terror that's up here. That's great for if you're wanting to get your charge effects off but not leave the target that you're in combat with. It will help you reposition. But this one here, with the Deathstalkers, is going to be basically how it played in the last book. So you're going to be able to just retreat out of combats, charge new targets, tag multiple enemies with it. It really opens up freedom with that retreat and charge. Not taking any damage is going to be great, because everyone else in the game that ever wants to retreat away from you is going to be taking damage for doing so. Then you can just follow up and charge them, and then if you ever want to leave, you're going to be able to retreat with sort of no penalties. And you also have run and charge, which is absolutely fantastic in those opening turns. Nighthaunt's always been a faction that wins on sort of the movement phase and has that speed and mobility. So being able to run and charge is something that a lot of armies really want, and now we have access for free just from our battle formation to be able to run and charge, retreat and charge, and not take damage from retreating. So this one here, Deathstalkers, is huge, and probably my personal favourite out of the lot. The last one here we have is the Procession of Death, and that gives us the ability friendly Nighthaunt infantry units have a ward save of 5+ while they're wholly within 6 inches of a friendly black coach. Now this is the one from the article where they were like, we're going to do a thing about black coaches. Keep your eyes peeled, and I was really hyped to see what that was going to be, and this is obviously the one to do with black coaches, and it is cool, it is very strong, but you have to build around this, a bit like the other ones really. Because, I mean, not only are you going to have to want to take a black coach anyway, because if you don't have a black coach, there's no point taking this because you won't get anything out of it. But having a 5+ ward while wholly within 6 inches of a black coach is pretty good. The only thing I have that's a problem with this one is it's infantry only, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I would have loved to have just seen this being like friendly Nighthaunt units. Not infantry only, just any Nighthaunt units 5+ ward. I get that's probably way too strong, but I would have loved like a black coach all kind of mounted army where you could just be sort of running hex wraiths, dread scythes and black coaches, and just have that full kind of mounted assault, and then be able to benefit from this. But infantry only isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, you get a big blob of like Grimghast Reapers or something next to this, then you know it's basically like having Discorporate on you at all times as long as you're in range of the coach, and we know how strong Discorporate can be from the last book, so basically having this turned on all the time is going to be great. And just Nighthaunt infantry means this is also going to affect your small heroes, so if you're running anything like a Lord Executioner, Cruelghast Cruciator, those kind of things, Knight of Shrouds on foot, they are also going to benefit from this 5+ ward. So this is probably going to be great if you've got like a 20-man unit of something, whatever your flavour might be, Reapers, Harridans, etc., and then you've got small heroes in there buffing them, and then a black coach next to them as well, then you can really turn that sort of survivability up, and you won't be burning your CPs by having to Discorporate if you use this. But yeah, these three are, you know, situational. I think Ethereal Translocation from the Vanishing Phantasms could be good, and it's probably going to be one for players that, you know, are going to be looking to make those big brain plays. Hunters of the Accursed is really cool and potentially scary to your opponent because they don't want to be getting those small heroes near your heroes, and your heroes are going to be wanting to go up with your troops doing cool things. So it's kind of, you know, really good if you can keep your small heroes alive. You can really threaten theirs. Cavalcade of Death is cool theming wise, but I think it's probably the weakest out of all of them. Maybe, I don't know how to rank these just yet. We'll have to test them all out and then see, but I think Deathstalkers is the big winner and probably the best one of these four here. Next up we have heroic traits, and we've only got 3 of them. Everyone's been sort of put down now, so everyone's got like 3 heroic traits, 3 artifacts, and when we get to spells there's also only 3 spells instead of 6 of each, so it's less to choose from. But the nice thing is these are just hero only, so these don't have to go on your general anymore. So yeah, that's really nice. Sorry about all the clicking. I don't know why it just highlighted everything. It's me going too crazy with the mouse and this new format of recording the screen. But yeah, these are now just hero only, so you don't have to stick these on your general, so there's nice flexibility in taking any of these 3. First one up is a once per battle in the movement phase. It's going to cost 1 CP, as we can see by the big circle up here in the top corner. It's Ruler of the Spectral Hosts. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt unit that started the battle with 3 or more models that has been destroyed to be the target. Set a replacement unit up with half the number of models from the target unit, rounding up wholly within 12 inches of this unit and more than 9 from all enemy units. So that's really cool. I like this one. I like the fact that it's now just given, so as long as you've got 1 CP, you're definitely getting this back. I used to really like Ruler of the Spectral Hosts in the very first Nighthaunt book, so we're going way back, like 6-7 years now, when the first Nighthaunt tome came out, and you used to just be able to return D3 slain models to a unit. Then in this last book, so in the 3rd edition book that we had, This was pretty much the same ability, but you had to roll a dice and it was like 50-50. So now that this is just spend a command point and it happens is great. I like that a lot. This is really strong on big reinforced units of things. The only problem with big reinforced units of things is obviously you have to get them killed. But that's great if you want to be aggressive with something like 20 Grimghast Reapers. Just fly them up the table, just chuck them in the enemy. Kill as much as you can while you're getting killed, and then when they do die, you're going to bring back 10 of them. Same with Hex Wraiths. If you got 10 blocker Hex Wraiths, you're going to bring 5 Hex Wraiths back, so that's really cool for just 1 CP. But yeah, not so great on MSU units, but at the same time you could really use that to harass the enemy, and it's also really good if you accidentally make a mistake and get someone killed really early on. Next up we have Cloaked in Shadow. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack targets this unit is a 1 to a 3, the attack fails and the attack sequence ends. So that basically means that your hero is only ever going to get hit on a 4+, regardless of what the enemy's hit value is. So if they somehow, for whatever reason, might be having hits on 2s, then you're going to be halving that to, you know, only on 4s. So that's really nice at keeping your smaller heroes alive. And we have Terrifying Entity. This unit can use an Aura of Dread ability even if it has already used one this turn, but cannot use more than 2 per turn. So that's quite cool. If we quickly flick back to the Aura of Dreads, so that would basically be like your hero will always get to use this one, the Petrify, so give them Strike Last. That will let you use a second one. So if it's just like a foot hero, they'll be able to use Shriek as well. So that breaks the kind of thing here if like you only get to use one. So you could Petrify and Shriek just from that hero charge. If you had a mounted hero, so this is going to be looking at like Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed, then you could Petrify and Stun, so hitting the enemy with a -1 to save and Strike Last just from your Knight of Shrouds on Steed going in could be really, really cool. But yeah, I think out of these ones I really like Ruler of the Spectral Hosts. That's just my playstyle because I'm a little bit reckless, but these I think Terrifying Entity could be quite good as long as you've got the right hero to be able to pull that off. Our artifacts here, same restrictions, so hero only, doesn't have to go anywhere, just like it used to. Oh, I've done it again. Stop doing it. But let's get on into these. So we've got Light Shard of the Harvest Moon. If this unit is in combat, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of melee weapons used by friendly Nighthaunt units within 12 inches of this unit for the rest of the turn, and that's once per battle. So kind of how we're used to it. So wholly within 12, +1 attack, once per battle. That's really cool. That's going to be nice on, again, like a bigger, on any of our more sort of choppy units, so like Blade Geist, things like that. We have the Familiar, which is a reaction. Opponent declared a fight ability for a unit in combat with this unit. So if they're in combat with you and they are actually trying to hit your hero, roll a d3 on a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on that enemy equal to this roll. That's really cool. That could pair up quite nicely if you are running the Hunters of the Accursed, because at the end of the turn you'll hit them on a 2+ for d3 mortal wounds, and if someone tried to hit you, obviously saying that actually this one's just enemy heroes, and this one here is just any enemy unit trying to hit you. So if a hero tries to hit you, that stacks up nicely with Hunters of the Accursed, because you'll be able to try and hit them for 2d3 on 2+, but that's quite cool because it retaliates to any unit that's trying to hit your hero, which if you were to use something like Cloaked in Shadow to make yourself more tanky, so you're only hitting a 4+, then you can be doing mortal wounds back without actually having to do your attacks if you wanted to use that for something else. The last one we have is the Soulfire Ring. If any enemy models were slain by this unit's combat attacks this turn, heal d6 to this unit. So that's really nice. That's good again for keeping more heroes alive. So you could use the Soulfire Ring and Cloaked in Shadow to be way more tanky, because you only have to slay one model and you're healing a flat d6. Obviously d6 is very swingy, but healing and sort of recursion and resurrecting units in this game, although there's 2 on this page here of a d6 heal and bringing a unit back, is generally a lot lower than it has been for Nighthaunt in the past. So that could be a really nice way of keeping your hero alive, especially if you're playing a game one of your smaller heroes might be your general and you don't want your general to be getting killed, so you could be using those sort of things stacked up there quite nicely. For the artifacts, I quite like I think the Light Shard is really strong. +1 attack on a unit, you know, that turn that you really need to hammer something down. If you've got a big brick of 20 models, aggressive models in the middle, that can be really nice. The familiar is probably the weakest one, but it does have some cool stuff. Like I said, if you synergize that with the battle formation, so if an enemy hero tries to hit you, you can be, you know, throwing back some more wounds on them quite nicely. That's before you've even attacked. So you're going to do that as they attack you, then you're going to use your attacks on them, and then at the end of the turn you might hit them for another D3 mortal wounds. But of course that again is only on the 2+, so 1/3 of the time you're not going to get it. Same with the battle formation, but still throwing back mortal wounds in this edition looks like it's going to be nice, and the Soulfire Ring is still really strong. Okay, so going on to the spell lore, we have the Lore of the Underworlds, and the really cool thing with spells now is there might only be 3 of them instead of 6, but the way that spell lores work is you just choose a lore, and you know all the spells in that lore across all of your wizards in the army. So you're going to have access to all 3 of these, which is nice. So we kept Shade Mist, and Shade Mist is the one that we saw on the faction focus. So that's pick a friendly Nighthaunt wizard to cast his spell. Pick a visible friendly Nighthaunt unit that has 3 or more models, so we're not going to be able to put this on any sort of single target entities, and is wholly within 12 inches of them. To be the target, make a casting roll 2d6. Up here is now the casting value in this little wheel, so this will cast on a 6, 7 and 6. But yeah, back to Shade Mist. So it casts on a 6. Subtract 1 from wound rolls for targets that attack that unit until the start of your next turn. And this one has the unlimited keyword, so that means you can cast this multiple times, not from one wizard. So for example, Lady O is a power level 2 wizard that we saw, so she can cast 2 spells. It means that she'll be able to cast Shade Mist and another spell, but she wouldn't be able to cast Shade Mist twice. But unlimited means if you've got multiple wizards in your army, so for example, we have Lady O and we have a Guardian of Souls, Lady O can cast Shade Mist, and then the Guardian of Souls can cast Shade Mist. So being able to put -1 to wound onto units, and it lasts until the start of your next turn, so if you're going first in the battle round, or second or anything, and you get doubled, yeah, so if you go first and then they go again, then you're still going to be -1 to wound until your next turn. So that's really nice, and a casting value of 6 is relatively low. I like anything that's below a 7, because 7 is the average roll on 2 dice, so 6 and below are on the sort of easier end to cast, and that's really strong, and the fact it's unlimited is absolutely great. It means we can make a really, really tanky front line, and it's going to last through the turns. Spirit Drain, casting value of 7. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt wizard to cast a spell, and a visible enemy unit within 18 inches, make the casting roll 2d6, roll a number of dice equal to the models in the target unit. For each 5+, inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. So that's nice, it's a nice anti-horde spell. You might not be casting that one all too often, but it's a higher cast value anyway, so that's probably for the best. But it's nice to just have that in there for utility, so if you end up playing someone like Gloomspite Gitz, or someone that has lots and lots of models on the table, and they're going to be trying to like drag you down with hordes of models, then you'll just be able to throw the Spirit Drain on them. On average, you'll be doing 2 mortal wounds for every 6 models in the unit, so, but it has the potential to spike, obviously, with anything where you're rolling dice. At the same time, this could do absolutely nothing, so, but it's just nice to have as a utility piece. So we've got a tanky debuff for the enemy, we've got a anti-horde spell, and we have Spectral Lure, which used to be the spell on the Guardian of Souls, so that's interesting. It's now come to the spell lore. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt wizard to cast a spell. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt unit wholly within 12 inches to be the target. Make the casting roll. Return a number of slain models to that target unit with a combined health characteristic of up to D6. So that's nice. I like that. That's on the lower end of the 6 casting spell. It's not unlimited or anything, so we're only going to be able to cast this the once. That's fine though. D6 models back, so if we've got 1 wound models, then you're going to be able to just get a flat D6 of them back. Anything that's got multi-wounds, then you still have the chance to bring them back as long as you roll high enough on the D6. So you're probably going to be throwing this out most turns and looking to get this into your sort of frontline troops. So again, Reapers, Blade Geist, that sort of thing, whatever your flavour of list might be, that's just going to be really nice at sustaining our front lines. And that's all of our spells, so I really like all of those. We've got a nice utility of all of them. We've got a recursion healing spell, we've got a debuff on the enemy that makes us more tanky, and we've got an anti-horde spell, and the casting values aren't that terrible either. 6s are nice. The 7, not so much, but then to be honest, this is a more situational spell, so I'd rather that be the 7 than, say, Shade Mist have been the 7. So we will take that. I really like our spell lore, and I think they're all pretty good. Next up, we have the Manifestation lore. So this is the... So you pick a spell lore and you pick a Manifestation lore, which are basically your endless spells for the army. We don't have any priests, but for those that do have priests, your Manifestation lore can be the spells, the invocations, instead of the endless spells. But this is the Nighthaunt one, so it's really weird how this is broken up. So this here is telling us what the casting values are, so they're all 6s, they're all spell summons, and it tells us the sort of the setup and effect for them. So, you know, if we need a friendly Nighthaunt wizard, this one, so the Terminexus, set it up wholly within 12 inches. We've got the Shy's Reaper, wholly within 9 of the caster and more than 9 from all enemy units. And the Vault of Souls is set up wholly within 12 inches of the caster and visible to them. So that's really cool. So it's interesting to see. Obviously, we'll get to the War Scrolls later. They're split, so the actual what the spells do isn't until the very end of this PDF. But one nice thing to note is the Terminexus and the Vault of Souls don't have a minimum requirement to stay away from the enemy, so you can put this anywhere on the table that you want where you might need it. And obviously the Reaper has to be set up further back, but that's because it's more of a aggressive spell, whereas these two are going to be more sort of support and utility. But we'll get to them more when we get to it. But they all cast on a 6, which is nice. Again, just like we said with the Lore of the Underworld, 6s are not bad. So we'll take that, and then we'll get into more of those when we get to the actual scrolls. So the first big scroll that we're going to see, and it is Supreme Lord of the Undead himself. It is Papa Nagash. Now, I won't spend too long talking about Nagash, because I feel like Nagash could kind of do his own video, his own deep dive, and I will get round to that once I've started testing things. Like you guys really enjoy seeing on the channel, so like the army list builds, and the unit deep dives and those kind of tactics guides, like I did the Terminexus one at the end of 3rd edition, those sort of format videos. We will be doing those, but obviously I need to be playing things, testing them first to really see what you can and can't do, and sort of limit testing things and how good it actually is or isn't, because seeing things on paper is one thing on its own. And Nagash is such a big piece with so many sort of moving parts to him, in my opinion, that I think he could do his own sort of video. So we'll probably actually just go over Nagash another time. But again, he is now keyworded to Nighthaunt, but as we saw, he doesn't benefit from Ethereal, but it means he will interact with everything else, which is really nice. And yeah, we'll get to Nagash another time. So I'm sorry if you really wanted to see Nagash today. Let me know in the comments if you really do want to see a Nagash thing, and we will break down Nagash on his own, because we've got so much to cover. We've got so much to go through. So let's get on into the Mortarch of Grief, the first Nighthaunt of the Nighthaunt. So yeah, Lady Orlinda. So she has 7 wounds and a 4+ save. Obviously we know that's an ethereal save, so it's unrendable. Control score of 2, and she moves 8. So the 4+ save and the movement of 8 is basically what we used to have all the time anyway, so that's very carried across. 7 wounds still, but she does have a 4+ save, and we can see down here she has a 4+ ward built in, so 4+, 4+. So that's not terrible. It's going to give her an effective health of around 20-ish, 21. Because if you have to pass, you have to fail double the saves, and then fail double again. So yeah, we'll say about 21 wounds to actually bring her down. So that 7 goes a lot further than you think, and if you are able to heal her in any way, then that's not going to be too bad. Her Veil is no longer an ability, it's actually a shooting attack now. 12 inches, 1 attack, 2s and 2s, Ren 3, damage D6, and it does crit auto wound. This is something that's across every single Nighthaunt thing. Basically replaced Frightful Touch, which is when you roll a 6, an unmodified roll of a 6 to hit, you don't, the auto wound means you don't have to roll to wound anymore. So as long as you roll an unmodified 6 to hit with any of your attacks, you just go straight through to the rend and damage, which is nice. So yeah, so 1 in 6 times you're actually going to land that and just go straight through to the D6 damage, but 2s and 2s isn't terrible, but again, 1 attack's a bit meh. I really would have liked this to have, there's some things in the game that have got shooting combat, and I think if Lady Ho had shooting combat on her thing, this wouldn't be completely broken, but at the same time it would make you, it would make it more worthwhile for getting her engaged, because a bit like that teleport sub-faction, or battle formation as they're called now, that's going to take a while to get around calling them battle formations. Just like the teleporting one, once you're tagged and you're in combat and you're in the thick of it, then you are not going to be able to shoot with her. And even if you're in the retreat and charge sub-faction, if you're in combat with someone and you retreat out, you can't retreat, shoot, and then recharge, because you lose the ability to shoot if you retreated. So yeah, not a big fan of the ranged attack, but that's just going to be chip damage on top. Her normal attacks are still okay. I mean, she's not going to win any big fights on her own, but she never did, she never has. But if you put her in sort of, as a support piece, which is what she is really, with and alongside another unit that can do damage, then this is nice damage to have sort of in your back pocket with Force 3s, Rend 1, D3 damage. That can spike quite a lot, especially if you shoot and somehow get, well, not somehow, if you manage to get 6 damage with a shooting attack. And then she comes in and does another sort of 12 damage here, and then she can do another 6 damage. So she can potentially do 18 damage in combat and 6 in shooting, so very spiky, very low probability of landing all of that. But there you go. Let's get on into the good bits, because I've just spent 5 minutes talking about this, and if I do that for every unit, we're going to be here forever. So, no rest for the wicked. Pick any number of friendly Nighthaunt units on the battlefield. For each target, you can return a number of slain models to that unit with a combined health characteristic of up to D3 plus 3. So that's nice. It's board wide. It affects every single unit you've got on the table. You don't need to be able to see them or anything, so that's really nice. So Lady O can just be off doing what she does best, and as long as your units aren't completely destroyed, they're going to be getting a nice D3 plus 3 heal to return slain models. I probably didn't word that the best, because you're not actually getting the heal, you are only returning slain models. So if you've got multi-wound models that are hurt, you're not going to be healing up through that, but you will be returning slain models, which is nice. And again, board wide, you don't need to be in line of sight or anything, so that's really cool and nice to have. And it's only once per game, but that's fine. She has a passive, Mortarch of Grief, which is the effect of subtract 3 from control scores of enemy units while they are within 12 inches of this unit. I really like that. That's nice. Obviously, control scores are now the way that we are going to be taking objectives. The -3 comes off from the combined control score. So if you were, say, fighting against 20 squigs, we'll use squigs again as an example. If you had 20 squigs and they had 1 control each, they count as 20 on that objective. She's going to -3 from the combined characteristic of the 20, not 3 from each individual squig, if that makes sense. But because she does this to each unit, if they had a hero that was up there and the hero was worth 5 and the squigs were worth 20, now the hero's only worth 2 and the squigs will only be worth 17 instead of 20 and 5. So this can be really strong, especially if there's lots of different enemy units or they've got lots of hero support with strong control scores trying to take a key objective. That's going to be big. And then she also has Grief Stricken, which is a spell, so it's a nice war scroll spell, casting value of 6, which we like. Pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit to be the target and then make a casting roll of 2d6. Ignore positive modifiers to hit rolls, wound rolls and save rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. Now this spell is really, really nice. If we think back to our different Aura of Dread, so we're going to be putting -1 to hit on the enemy, there's a way to get -1 to save on the enemy, then you manage to cast this onto the enemy. Well, you do this before because it's your hero phase, and you do the Aura of Dread in the charge phase, you know what I mean. If you get Grief Stricken off onto an enemy unit, then you start hitting them with more debuffs. There's nothing they can do about it. So ignore all positive modifiers. So there's no all-out attack, there's no hero buff going on them, there's nothing to get that hit, wound and save roll back up. So the more debuffs you can stack on an enemy and then you get them grief stricken, this is going to be really, really strong. Now it does only last to the end of the turn, so if you cast it on your turn it'll be gone by the time the enemy gets to their turn. But don't forget, now we've got those nice sweet reactions. So we have the I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's the heroic intervention, something like that, magic intervention. I can't remember the name. But yeah, you're going to be able to cast this at the end of the enemy hero phase. You will be -1 to cast, so then it will be a 7, which makes it a bit more tricky. But getting this off on the enemy turn onto a key unit, say you're fighting ogres and they've got a reinforced unit of iron guts that are going to be looking to charge and fight twice, then all of a sudden you hit them with this. And sort of if you've got any other debuffs that might be going over from multiple turns, or if you've managed to countercharge, etc., etc., get something else off, any debuffs on your turn and now possibly the enemy's turn, this spell is strong, super strong. And as we spoke about earlier, she is a wizard 2. That little 2 in there is her power level. That means how many spells she can cast and unbind. So you'll be able to cast Grief Stricken and you'll be able to cast something else. So for example, if you pile that on with Shade Mist, pick an enemy unit, make them -1 to wound. Shade Mist was the one that carries on until your next turn. So if you Shade Mist your own friendly unit, make everyone -1 to wound, and then you Grief Stricken an enemy unit that unit goes into, they're going to be -1 to wound, and there's nothing they can do to make that better, which is really nice. There's no all-out defense, no all-out attack. Grief Stricken, super strong. I love that spell. She is 300 points now. I do have the points in front of me. Yep, she's 300 points. So she's a lot of points, and it may not look like it on these sort of attacks, but between Grief Stricken, between Mortarch of Grief, the heal is just sort of nice. It's not anything too crazy, but these two here are going to be really good. And you could also do the there's the reaction for shooting in the enemy turn, so you could get the horrifying visage off and catch someone. If an enemy hero moves up and tries to, wants to get into a fight with Lady O, then you could potentially hit them with a nice D6. You get -1 to hit when you use that shoot reaction, but I mean that just puts you on 3s and 2s, and then hitting them with a Ren 3 D6 damage attack in their own phase just for moving closest unit to you. Again, they could counter that by moving something else to be the closest unit and the hero in behind, which would be the smart play. But if they mess that up and the hero ends up really close and you can get this off, you can shoot them in their turn. So between that and the spell, there's a lot of things that Lady O can do out of turn that lines up really nice, and you can justify her points with it that way. Next up, we have Kurdos Valentian. Same sort of thing. He is movement 8, 4+ save, 7 wounds, like all our big heroes. He only has a ward of 6+. I think Lady O is the only one that comes with the stock 4+ ward. So he's a lot less tanky than she is, but he does have control value of 5, which is nice. So he's going to be good at getting to objectives. His attacks, like always, are still really nice. He's Ren 2, damage 3, 3s and 3s, and 4 attacks is nothing to scoff at. He's going to really ruin a small hero's day or dent any units that have sort of lower save. So if anything's like a 4, 5+ save and he hits them with that Ren 2 damage 3, they are going to know about it. His spectral attacks are what they are. They just sort of add on, like all the other Nighthaunt heroes, with these extra companion attacks. And he has the crit auto wounds as well, so it's just nice. He has one ability, which is a once per turn reaction. Opponent declared a command for a unit within 12 inches of this unit. Roll a dice on a 3+. Your opponent spends, unless your opponent spends 1 additional command point to use that command, the command has no effect. It still counts as having been used, and the command points spent to use the command points are lost. So that's really nice. 3+ isn't the worst odds. It's not the greatest. You're still going to fail that 1 in every 3 attempts that you try. But I mean, it's completely free if you want to take Kurdos anyway. Costing your opponent command points. Command points are, they did say they were going to be a lot rarer this time around, and they are. And they do a lot of things, like we were just talking about with Lady O, being able to do the reaction to cast the spell or the reaction to do the shoot. So being able to cost your opponent command points on a roll of a 3+ is going to be great. And the fact that it still counts as having been used, if they go down to just 1 command point left and they try and use something and you get that 3+, and you're like, hey mate, you owe me 2 command points to use that now, and they physically don't have the 2 command points, then they're not only going to lose that last point, and they won't get the command because they couldn't spend 2 points on it. So Kurdos does some pretty nice stuff there. He comes in at, let's quickly check the list. I can't see it. Oh no, I should have made these notes. I'm just looking at this. He's 200 points. So that's not terrible. I mean, that's a nice beefy stat profile and being able to shut down commands, however much you might view that as. But yeah, that's Kurdos. Next up, we have Alrich the Drowner, and this was a personal favourite of mine in the last edition. A lot of you really liked my Cursed Hosts of the Ferryman list that I did in the back end of 3rd edition. And that's what I mean about, in general, I know we're going to be taking a while to go through this, but like testing things out and finding that, because that Alrich list was not on my radar at the start of the edition, but just through playing the thing and getting used to the abilities, that's what we managed to make out of it. And it was really, in my opinion, unique and different, and a lot of fun to play. So these are the kind of unearthed gems that we might not find straight away just looking at these things. So he has a movement of 10, so he's a little bit quicker because he's on his boat. 7 wounds, 4 up save. He's only a control value of 2 and 6 up ward. He is a war machine, like we spoke about at the beginning. So when you're doing your Aura of Dreads, he is one that can do the -1 to save rolls if he charges, if you wish to use him. His attacks aren't bad for a guy with just a wooden oar. I was amazed last time that he had basically like this stat line and then got an extra D3 attacks, I think it was, when he charged. So he's got decent stats. He's got a once per turn movement phase, passes through the underworld. If this unit is not in combat, pick a friendly non-Nighthaunt unit that is not in combat and wholly within 12 inches of this unit to be the target. Remove this unit and the target from the battlefield. Set them up again on the battlefield wholly within 6 inches of each other and more than 7 inches from all enemy units. And that is a core keyworded movement ability. So that's really cool. It's only 7 inches away. A lot of things stipulate that you have to be 9 inches away, which makes charging a lot harder. The only bad things I see about this is he has to not be in combat if this unit is not in combat. Friendly Nighthaunt unit. Pick a friendly non-Nighthaunt unit that is not in combat. So you can't teleport units that are locked in combat away anymore like you could previously. So Alrich and the unit that he's targeting both have to be out of combat. This is a core ability and a movement phase one, so you can only use one core ability per phase. So you can't, if Alrich is in combat, he can't retreat and teleport. But I believe that the unit could retreat and then he can teleport them because they're not the ones using this ability. He'd be using the ability, they'd be using retreat as their core. Then you could teleport 7 away and charge someone else. So it's not as good as the old scroll. It's a lot more situational, I think, just for that purely not being in combat. But he's going to be good. That's a nice way, again, for battle tactics sake, depending how we are further down the road. Take the flanks and take their lands is going to be really nice. That 7 inches away is also really nice. So I can see why there's this other stipulation on there to make it so units don't have to be in combat. Because if you were just locked in combat, and then you could just teleport from combat with both of them 7 inches away and then recharge again. As long as you save a CP for the reroll charge, 7 inches away with a reroll is good odds. So that is strong. Alrich is 160 points this time around. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how the rest of the units shake out and the sort of tactics. I think, again, like last edition, if you're going to take Alrich, you have to build around this passage through the underworlds. And you've got to be careful with him as well, because 7 wounds, 4 up ethereal, and 6 up ward. He's not going to survive the heaviest of things, and so far we haven't seen much hero healing once again. Yeah, we've got the spectral lore in the thing to heal units. Lady O only heals slain models, so far we've seen no way to heal heroes. So 7 wounds might not go very far, but we might be able to change that when we go through. We'll have to see. But I think Alrich is still one that you have to build a list around and isn't just going to plug into any old list, but we will see about that. Reikenor the Grim Hailer, so this is another one that we saw on the faction focus. He is glowing up. So he is a 12-inch move, so he's even faster because he's on his flying Pegasus. He is the same as all the others, 7 wounds, 4 up save, 6 up ward, 2 control. His attacks are really good. For a support cast wizard, his attacks now are amazing. 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, Rend 2, damage 2, and as long as he's charged, he's getting +1 damage. So you see that as a 3, then that is a really solid profile for a support wizard. And he's obviously got crit auto wound as well, so any 6s to hit with 5 attacks, so you should always probably be getting one of those. Yeah, you're going to be going straight through with that Ren 2 damage 3, which is nice. And then he's got the horse attacks, which are just, you know, extra on top as always. He still has corpse candles. You either pick this unit or a visible enemy unit within 12 inches. It's not wholly within, so it's just as long as one guy from a unit's within 12 is nice. Allocate 1 point of damage to the target. If you picked an enemy unit, add 1 to casting rolls for this unit for the rest of the turn. If you pick this unit for the rest of the turn, add 1 to casting rolls and add 1 to his power level. So he is only power level 1. This is one of my gripes with Reikenor through the editions. He's always been a 1-cast wizard, yet he's supposed to be the big badass wizard of the book. And then Lady O just outshines him in magic. So I always thought he should be the 2-cast wizard. But this is nice because he's never had this before. He's never had a way to get to multicast. So getting +1 to his casting rolls and being able to cast 2 spells is nice. You still have to do damage to yourself, but we've been used to that because Corpse Candles has always been his thing. But it's nice that you can now get more bang for your buck through hurting yourself. And especially if, like we spoke about with Alrich, there's not really ways to heal heroes we haven't seen yet. That could be really, really good. Wraithstorm is his own spells, cast on a 7. Pick an enemy unit within 12 to be the target. Inflict D3 mortal damage on the target. If any models are slain, inflict initial D3. So that's the same as it always has been. Really cool. Just nice for getting some damage through on an enemy unit. If there's only like 2 of them left, and you get, that's no longer that's not the D3 on a 2+, so that can do 1 mortal damage. So if there's like 2 guys left on an objective in the middle of nowhere, and you roll the first one through, and you only get 1 point of damage, then you can just get the other guy through that way. So that's really nice, just a sort of a nice cleanup spell. Grim Justice, add 1 to the hit and wound rolls for attacks made by this unit. Fell Reaper if the target is a priest or a wizard. So we were already saying about how good this is, especially if you charge, so you're damage 3, but you can now be 2s and 2s Ren 2 damage 3 if you're fighting a priest or a wizard. And with how popular the manifestation laws and ender spells that are looking at the moment, there's probably always going to be priests and wizards in everyone's lists at the moment. So this is going to be good. You get him into the right target on the charge, which with his 12-inch move is very likely. You can keep him nice and safe. You can fly, so you can just hide behind terrain, pop over the terrain when the enemy presents themselves, pop over a screen, anything like that. Get Reikenor into that wizard and get chopping, because oh boy, he is going to be hunting down wizards just like he's supposed to, and that is really good, really strong. Next up is the Scriptor Mortis. So movement 8, 6 health. Okay, most heroes are normally 5, so that's nice. 4+, 2+ control, 6 up ward. His quill doesn't really do much of anything, but you wouldn't expect it to because he's stabbing you with a feather. Let's see what he does this time. So once per turn in your hero phase, pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches, so it's got a good range. Roll a dice on a 3, plus the target has the sentence keyword for the rest of the battle. Once per turn army, end of your turn. Roll a dice for each sentenced enemy unit on the battlefield. On a 4+, inflict an amount of mortal damage equal to the current battle round number on the sentence unit. Oh boy, I was hoping for more on this guy. That's not great. So not only do you have to roll a 3+ to sentence someone, you have to be within 18 and visible to you. Then you have to roll the 3+ to sentence them, and then you have to roll another dice, and on a 4+ you do some damage. Like it's better. It's better than it was. It's nice that you can now do multiple units, and it's not death keyword, like, because before it was like you couldn't pick death units, so now you just pick anyone. So he's actually able to be used in every single game now, which is cool. And you could potentially get sentenced on someone every turn for 5 turns. So at the bottom of the last turn, you could be rolling this 5 times and doing 5 mortal wounds per 4+. But it's a lot of ifs, whats, maybes, and have-nots. So yeah, Scriptor Mortis not looking good. It could be fun, could be memey, but just too swingy once again. Tomb Banshee. Okay, so now we're back down to 5. So the Scriptor does have an extra point of health for whatever reason. 2 Banshee. Yeah, 4+, 6+. So we probably just won't need to look at that because yeah, just standard. She has the piercing scream, 12-inch range, D3 attacks, force 3's Ren 2, D3 damage. She can shoot in combat. This is what Lady O should have. Lady O should be able to do this too. 3 attacks in combat, force 3's Ren 2, D3 damage with crit auto wound. So not terrible. She's a little bit swingy on the damage. I don't like the D3 on the attacks here. I'd rather that just be like 2 or something, but that's fine. Once per turn, any shooting phase, pick an enemy unit that had any damage points allocated to it this turn by attacks made with this unit's piercing scream to be the target. Roll a dice on a 2+. The target cannot use commands until the start of the next turn. Ooh. So if you use this ranged attack and you get any damage points on them, so if they failed their save, so damage points are like the bit in between saves and wards. So you fail your save, allocate the damage points, and then you'd roll wards equal to the damage points before you lose health. So if they fail their armor save but pass a ward save, you still get to roll for this. But if they passed it with their armor save, then they didn't take any damage points. So that's not bad. I mean, you've got to be really close, but shutting off commands is so strong, especially if it's like your opponent's big hammer unit and you've got a tiny little Tomb Banshee hiding in there. She's 150 points this time around. But still, I can see why now, because that is strong. And at Ren 2, that's going to, you've only got to get a single point of damage through. That's not bad. That's not bad. I quite like that. For 150 points, though, I don't know how much I like it, but I do like it. And she has a passive, Cacophony of Sorrow. While there are friendly Mirmorn Banshees wholly within 12 inches of this unit, ignore positive modifiers to control scores of enemy units within 12 inches of this. Okay, I can see why she's 150 points. These are strong. The Tomb Banshee coming in hot with this new War Scroll. That is strong. Shutting off commands and ignoring positive modifiers, not positive povifiers. Yeah, put that in there with like Lady O, who's making them -3 to their control score. We saw the spoiler alert, the Dreadblade Harrows in the faction focus, so we already know what they do. They can give you plus to your control score if they charge. Lady O's minusing your control score, and then here you have a Tomb Banshee who will ignore any positives that you have to their control scores. So she's really good at just helping shove things off objectives. Like, you don't have to be killing enemy units. It's possible to mess around with their control score so much that you're just taking that objective off them even without having to kill them. So I really like this scroll. I really like the Tomb Banshee. I'm going to have to play with this a few times, get a feel for it. She's very susceptible because she's got to get close. She's got to get within that 12 inches, so she's going to be in trouble. And she has to be near Mirmorns, who are never normally the tankiest of unit. So you've got to be careful with this, but in the right situation, if you can keep them safe, then yeah, like I said, if you want to be playing this with Lady O, so Lady O's making them -3, but then they don't get any positives to try and balance that out, and you're getting things like Shade Mist and Grief Stricken onto those key units, and then you stop them getting any commands off, then yeah, the Tomb Banshee and the Mirmorns are going to have fun just ripping things to pieces. So this could be really nice at fighting over like essential objective. This is what I'd call like a wave 2 kind of hero. So wave 1 for me is like your stuff that you want in the front lines, like your Bladegeist, your Grimghast, your Hexwraith, etc., and then having this like come in after the lines have clashed and be just kind of like enemy units have all started taking damage, units have started dying, etc., and then this comes in, they've got to deal with this. Sort of from the mid game to the late game, this could be really nice and really strong. I really like that scroll. So next on our list, the Knight of Shrouds on foot. So yeah, similar stat line for a guy on foot. 5 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 1, 2 damage with crit auto wound is not bad at all. He's got passive stolen hours. Each time this uses a fight ability, after that fight ability has been resolved, heal X to this unit, where X is the number of damage points. So again, that's after saves but before wards is when damage points are allocated to enemy units by combat attacks, and you get to okay, so he has still the same thing where he just heals himself for killing things. He's only 5 health to start with, so unless the enemy sort of one-shot him, as long as he's still doing damage, he's probably going to be either at full health or dead. So that's nice because it forces the enemy to have to deal with him in kind of one go, or he probably won't die. Chip damage is no good to a Knight of Shrouds unless you're doing multiple chip damage in a single turn. And he has a reaction. You declared a fight ability for this unit, Infantry Overseer. Pick a friendly non-hero Nighthaunt infantry unit that has not used a fight ability this turn and is within this unit's combat range to be the target. The target cannot be picked to use a fight ability, or can be picked to use a fight ability immediately after the fight ability has been used. This unit has been resolved. If you do so, add 1 to hit rolls for the target's attacks for the rest of the turn. So basically, you fight with your Knight of Shrouds, then you pick a non-hero Nighthaunt infantry unit that's within his own combat range, so within 3 inches of the Knight of Shrouds, and then they get to fight after him straight away, so ignoring the sort of you go, I go, you go, I go. So he goes, then a friendly Nighthaunt unit within 3 goes, and they also get +1 to their hit rolls if they do. So that's really cool. That's good to open up some fun combos with big sort of hammer units. And yeah, he's going to be healing himself, so Knight of Shrouds on foot is pretty good. How many points? He's 140 points, so that's not terrible. That's not bad. I quite like that. He's one of this. I love this model. It's been one of my favourite models for the longest time. When he came out in the Malayan Portents campaign, like just before Nighthaunt got their own book. Nighthaunt was like 4 or 5 war scrolls, and then he came out. And that was back when Nighthaunt used to do mortal wounds on 6s to hit. But it wasn't unmodified 6s to hit, because that was when the game was still broken for that, and you could get all sorts of crazy pluses. And he used to let you do on 5 pluses, you'd be doing mortals for units around him, and then you'd be just getting all sorts of pluses to hit and then doing like mortals on 4s. And it was crazy, it was fun. But I just love his model, but his rules have always been a bit doo-doo ever since yeah, that sort of first incarnation that he came out. But yeah, no, I quite like that. That's quite cool. That's going to be fun, being able to do double fights and +1 to hits, I'm sure. Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed. He's up to 7 health, which is expected because the mounted heroes are always stronger. Still 4+, 6+, with 12 inches of movement, so he's nice and quick. Same sword profile. Whose attacks? Stolen Hours is the same as the other sword, so he heals for every damage point that he allocates, which is nice. And here's his Cavalry at Overseer. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt Cavalry or War Machine that is not used to fight. Target can be picked to use a fight ability. So he does the same thing, and you add 1 yeah, so he does the same thing but for Cavalry and War Machine. So that's going to be your Black Coach, your Hex Wraith, Dreadblade Harrows. I was going to say Harridans then. Dreadblade Harrows. So that's really cool, that the fact that the Knight of Shrouds and the Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed is kind of like a pick your flavour, either mounted or foot, and that they're actually on even footing now. The Ethereal Steed version is 180 points, and like we said, he would actually synergize really well with the command buff and the artifact, the one that lets you do like the 2, because obviously the difference between the 2 of them is he's going to get the hero one to make people strike last, but he's also a cavalry unit, which is why he's 40 points more, because he's also a cavalry unit. So this guy can get the -1 to save. But obviously if you're using this to go in with a cavalry or war machine, you use the war machine or cavalry unit to make the enemy -1 to save, and then he can make the enemy strike last. But if you're fighting twice anyway, you probably won't need it. But being able to put the +1 to hit and double fight with either or whichever kind of unit hero combination you pick is going to be really cool. Okay, so moving on, we've got the Khan Wraith. So back to 5s and 4s. He's got 6 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1, 2 damage. And he has the passive Eager Death Dealers. While this unit is in combat, add 1 to the attacks characteristics of melee weapons used by friendly Grimghast Reapers while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. That is interesting. Obviously, we'll have to see what Grimghast Reapers can do first, but, I mean, +1 attack while wholly within 12 inches. So basically you just get him to hug a unit of Reapers, and he's going to be giving them lots of extra attacks. His attacks himself aren't terrible. I mean, 6 attacks with 2 damage and crits on 6s is not bad. So he is 130 points, but he's also one of the cursed souls, as a note on the points limit, so he can actually, other heroes can take him in their regiment, so he doesn't have to be like a hero regiment slot on his own. So you could take like one of the bigger heroes, so like Lady O, then put a Khan Wraith in Lady O's regiment, and then put the Reapers that he wants to be with in the same regiment. So that's cool. I like that. I like Grimghast Reapers a lot, so we'll see what happens when we get there. Next up on our list is the Krulgast Cruciator. So 6 wounds, so he's a little bit more tanky. Still has the ranged attack, 4s, 3s, 3s, Ren 2, damage 1. He can shoot in combat, which is nice, so you're going to be doing that all game long, as long as you're in range. 4 attacks, 4s, 3s, 1s and 2s. Isn't amazing, but he's not like a frontline combat hero anyway. His passive is empowered through Excruciation. Ignore the first damage point that would be allocated to each friendly Nighthaunt unit within 12 inches of this unit in each phase. I don't know if I like that a lot. Like, I know I said I wasn't going to compare to the old scrolls, but when he was just a flat -1 to damage, so like it would make his, say like his own profile here would be damage 1. Now it's just ignore damage point, and as we said, damage points are after saves but before wards. So if your unit takes 20 damage, he's just reducing it to 19. It is each phase, so that's hero, shooting, combat, end of turn, phase, etc, etc. But I don't know. He's 150 points, and only 1 damage point is... it's a lot for not a lot trade-off. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes out. But my initial thought, I don't like this guy so much at the moment. But we'll see. We'll have to see how the meta shakes out. And the Krulgast could be one to prove me wrong. But we'll see about that. Lord Executioner. Hey, here we go. I always love the sculpt. I love this sculpt here, the one that's shown. This was the named one, and there was also the one that came in the Soul Wars box with the sort of hangman's noose. And I've been a big fan of the Lord Executioner ever since, because he's just so cool. So back down to 5 wounds. He's got 5 attacks, 3s, 3s, Ren 2, damage 2, anti-hero +1 rend. So he's Ren 3, damage 2 against heroes. He's still got the crit auto wound, so that's a really nice profile. They've given that axe some swing. Once per turn, any combat phase, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll a dice on a 2+, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristics of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. In addition, if the target is a hero, subtract 5 from the target's control score. That's nice. That's really nice. You get that into like an enemy hammer unit that has like multiple attacks, like 2-3 attacks. Not only are you going to be reducing their attacks, I suppose you pick the unit or the hero. If they've got a hero with lots of attack profiles, you throw that on there, you get -1 because it's subtract 1 from the attack characteristics of the melee weapons. Yeah, so if you've got an enemy hero that's got like multiple weapons and they're hitting you with all of them, you get -1 to all of them. Say something off the top of my head, I don't know because I haven't seen too many other profiles, but something like in the old game would have been like a Keeper Secret, something like that, that's got lots of different profiles. -1 attack on all of them and -5 to their control score is big. Combine that with Lady O, who could make them -3. Then you do a -5, so it's -8. Chuck a Tomb Banshee in there so they don't get positives, and then you've made the enemy -8. Yeah, you can be really shouldering people off objectives with that. And then he's swinging as well with that axe. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the Lord Executioner. That's really how many points? It's always the big question. How many points? Lord Executioner, he's 150. So we'll have to see about that. He is one of the cursed souls, so he can, again, like the Khan Wraith could, he can go into other people's regiments. That's a really nice combat support hero, which is what he's supposed to do. You know, he's not meant to be big guy going down guns blazing. It's not meant to be like a Kurdos level of power, but that's still really nice. I like that a lot. So thumbs up. Dreadblade Harrow. So we are into a units now. Let's have a... oh no, there's still... they've just chucked these in here. So they're in amongst the heroes, even though they're not heroes anymore. They're now a unit. So we shall see. So this is one that we saw in the faction review spoiler bit, and we have spoke about them slightly already because we already sort of knew what they could do. 3 health each, which is nice. Obviously they can be reinforced now, so you could actually have a unit of 4 harrows because they're not heroes anymore. They are a unit. They are 160 points for 2, so a little bit expensive, but if they charge, they add 3 to the control scores of Nighthaunt units while they're wholly within 12. And that's all units wholly within 12. So it's not just like you charge in and you pick 1. Add 3 to the control scores of Nighthaunt units, yeah, while they're wholly within 12. So if you've got like a hero and a unit and the harrows charge in, like all 3 of them are all going to gain 3. So that can really, and with the stuff that we were just talking about, like with the Lord Executioner, Lady O, the Tomb Banshees, you are really going to be messing with people's control scores while buffing your own. And the Dreadblade Harrows will just play into that so well with that Curse of Loyalty. Their attacks aren't terrible either. I mean, 4 attacks with 2 damage each. Sure, they're only Rend 1, hitting on 4s, 3s. Not great, but like again, it's going to be a support thing. You're mainly going to be charging for that Curse of Loyalty buff, so you're already going to have 1 or 2 units in combat, which are hopefully going to be better hammers than them anyway, and that's just going to be sort of damage on the side. Maybe you kill the last sort of wound or 2 off in a unit with these guys, so it's sort of like not a slouch, but not anything crazy, so that's fine. And this is the main reason you're going to want some. So they still have the any movement phase, the Phantasmal Discorporation. So rather than moving, because this is a core ability, so rather than like moving, retreating, running, etc., you just remove them from the table, set them up on the battlefield more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So like we spoke about with that sub-faction, they basically have it built in. Although this one is just removed from the battlefield. So they can teleport while they're in combat, so this is way better. This is way better than the sub-faction. So they can tell if they get charged and like one of them lives, he can just teleport out, and because it's now a unit, you could then heal them back. So that's really cool. Okay, that changes a lot. For some reason I thought that this was only, this had the same combat stipulation when I read that in the faction focus. But these guys are going to be amazing for the battle tactics. So take their land, like we spoke about before, take their land, the one where you capture a terrain piece in enemy territory. Take the flanks, they just teleport out towards the board edge. If you've got multiple units of these guys, boom boom, you take both flanks with just Dreadblade Harrows. The rest of your army can still carry on fighting. They don't have to get distracted by none of this moving out of the way for a battle tactic nonsense. Harrows can just do it. Again, a bit pricey, 160. Did I say once? Yeah, 160 for 2. And they're only 3 wounds, 4+, 6+. But, I mean, yeah, I think you're going to at least always have a unit of these. At least 1, if not 2. And that teleport even while being in combat. So you can charge in. You'd be able to charge in, boost everyone's control scores, fight, and if you didn't kill them, you're still not locked in. You can just teleport 9 away, which is really nice. Or you just don't even have to teleport. You could charge in, boost the control scores. Your enemy might want to be fighting something else because they see something else as a threat, like a hero or something. Then you just teleport out of combat and then go score your battle tactics. So as long as these guys are alive, like take their land and secure the take the flanks, is going to be, I don't want to say easy, but it's on easier mode. You've turned it down from hard to normal or normal to easy. How about that way? Yeah, Phantasmal Discorporation is huge, and Dreadblade Harrows are going to be everywhere. Get your Dreadblade Harrows out. Get the dust off them. They're coming back. Guardian of Souls. So, 5 wounds. Combat attacks are okay, but again, he's a wizard, so... Nightmare Lantern. While this unit is in combat, add 1 to the wound rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Nighthaunt units that are wholly within 12 inches. So he does the same thing, but now it's no longer just the range, he has to be in combat as well, so he is going to be in trouble. Like, to be able to get this effect now, he has to be in combat, so he's going to be able to be punched. And obviously 5 with a 4+, 6+ is not amazing. If you have the Black Coach formation, a Black Coach nearby, like heroes like this will be a 5+ ward. You can always discorporate if they target your hero. You could give him the traits and stuff, so he's only getting hit on a 4+, or you could, if you really wanted to, try and put like a Soul Firing on a Guardian Souls. Wouldn't recommend it. Oh, and he doesn't have a War Scroll spell either, and he's a 1 cast, which, I mean, I expect him to be a 1 cast because he's just generic non-hero wizard, but yeah, he doesn't bring anything to the table bar this now, because before Spectral Law, the heal D6 models back thing was his spell, but now anyone can cast that, so Riken or Lady O are going to be casting that. He is the only non-hero, non-named hero wizard, but I don't think that really matters anymore. Like, this is nice. This is a nice buff. Add 1 to wound rolls while wholly within 12, but putting him in combat, like I said, that's a how many points is this guy now? Oh, I can't find it on the Guardian. 140, so he's not terribly expensive. And for +1 to wound, that can be really nice. You have to be careful with him, build around him. Try and keep them safe, maybe. I don't know, because that's the sort of buff that you want on a really combat heavy unit, and you don't want him to be taking the damage back. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he gets prioritized, I guess, kind of in your list building. But the enemy can take this guy out so easy. So easy. That's my only problem with the Guardian Assault. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Pyregeists. Oh, so they are still here, because I know a lot of the... Is that the Underworld, and I suppose these are the Warcry ones, aren't they? I think, maybe. Don't know. They changed a lot of them to Legends, so I wasn't sure if these guys are going to make it, but they are new, so it makes sense they're here. They are 1 wound. What do they come in? 1 out of 8. Okay, so they got the Gout of Balefire, 10-inch range, 2 attacks, 4s, -1/1, crit or win. They can shoot in combat, so not anything to write home about, but at the same time, shoot in combat means you're always going to be doing this, even when you get tied up. So it's just some nice chip damage. Flaming weapons, 2 attacks, 4s, 4. So they got a decent weighted dice behind them. I mean, 2 attacks in combat and 2 shooting, even when in combat. So they're throwing like 4 dice a turn if they're in combat. So it's not terrible. Lighter Pipe. If this unit is contesting an objective, pick a visible enemy unit within 6 inches of this unit to be the target. Roll a d3 on a 2+. Inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. Add a number equal to the roll to this unit's control score for the rest of the turn. So if you were to get a 3, you do 3 mortal damage on the enemy, and then you'd add 3 to your control score. There's 8 of them for 8. That goes up to like 11. I don't know about these guys. How many points are these guys? 100. They're only 130 points, so it's quite cheap. There's 8 of them. I don't know. The models look cool. I really like the models. I don't know about the rest of it. That'll be one to test. But this could be... It suddenly takes them from like an 8 control, and then I suppose actually if you do boost their control and then you're playing in the other shenanigans, like with the Dreadblade Arrows, Lady O, Doom Banshee, etc., etc., this could quite sneak up, take an objective. But yeah, 10-inch range. I don't know. We'll have to play test them. It's one of those units. I didn't really use them at the end of 3rd because they came out right at the very back end, and I think their rules were just sort of thrown together for whatever, you know. They went around long enough. I didn't play them, so I don't know. We'll have to just see how that goes. It's not a profile that blows me away, but it could be one of them sleeper units that no one really looks at, and then you'll find out like when someone goes and wins an event with them, and you're like, aha, that's what they do. Next up, we have the Spirit Torment. So 5 attacks, 4s, 3s, 1, 2. Captured Soul Energy. Each time a friendly Nighthaunt unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit uses a rally command, you make 3 additional rally rolls of a d6. And he is Spirit Torment, 130 points. Ooh, I don't know about that. Because rally is now you roll 6 dice. Each 4+ you get a rally point, and you can spend rally points to either heal wounds back or return slain models equal to the number of rally points that you spend. So you'd be rolling 9 dice instead of 6, and on a 4+. So before on average, you should get 3 rally points. And an additional 3 is going to net you like 1.5 dice. So that's going to score you 4.5 rally points on average if you're within range of a Spirit Torment. But the nice thing about rally, and it's one thing I really struggle to get my head around, so rally to me is always like returning slain models back to units. But rally now just says any unit that's not in combat can use a rally. So you could use this to heal heroes, and that's the only thing we've seen so far, I think. Memory serves me right. Of all the scrolls we've looked at, that's the only thing that actually heals heroes so far, is rallying. So this 4.5 wounds back on a hero. I mean, most of our heroes are only 5 to 7 wounds anyway, so that's more than like half their health back. So a Spirit Torment might change his role from like, you don't want to be using this to bring units back. I mean, obviously you can use it to bring units back, but it seems like we've got lots of healing elsewhere. Some Spectral Law, Lady O. We've got Ruler of the Hosts to just bring back destroyed models. Maybe this guy's role now is to just help rallying heroes out of combat. because we've got a lot of sort of support heroes that want to sit back. But I don't know. 130 points. Yeah, compared to the old Spirit Torment that was just like flat 3 healed things back to units, like that was great. We've loved the Spirit Torment for a long time, so maybe he gets shelved. Maybe. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how many points. There's a lot of heroes. The thing with Nighthaunt is like so many heroes do so many good different things. You kind of have to pick your poison. And I feel like the Spirit Torment was almost like, if you went down the healing route, he was just like auto include. You take 2 of them. You just be like, yep, it's a flat 3 guys back every turn, 3 guys back, 3 guys back. Then it changed to, you know, as long as something died. So he was healing out of phase. But now it's revolved around rallying. And rallying is so. But like I said, it's not tied to just units, so we could use that for heroes. It does just say units on rally, so it could even, this could heal the Black Coach. 4.5 wounds back to your Black Coach returns, not bad. But is it worth 130 points to add an extra? Because like I said, you're getting 3 anyway. So on average, I mean, you can spike, you could get 9 points instead of 6, which would be big. But on average, if you're looking at it from, you know, the average thing, you're paying 130 points to get an extra 1.5 rally points. So is that really worth 130 points? Probably not. Maybe. We'll have to see. Ooh, here we are. Grimghast Reapers, one of my personal favourites. I used to run 50 of these guys in 2nd edition. It was just crazy. So, 1 health, 4. Slasher's Scythe is 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1, 1 damage, +1 rend, anti-infantry. So that's rend 2. Reaps like corn. This unit's combat attacks score critical hits on the unmodified hit roll of a 5 +1 has 5 or more. Okay. Okay, so I was interested to see what this was going to look like, because the thing about the Reapers before was when we had reach, was that they were the only 2-inch reach models on 32mm bases, because Bladegeist and Harridans were 1-inch reach, which made them difficult to fight in multiple ranks with, whereas the Grimghast Reapers could. So like that was their thing, and then there was that FAQ at the end of 3rd edition where they gave all of those units 2-inch reaches. So Grimghast like lost their shine, like they didn't have a reason to be. I think they were a tiny bit cheaper, but like the others were just better. So yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. So it was nice. So they are the anti-infantry, +1 rend. When you chuck an all-out attack on these guys, so they're 2 attacks, 3s, 3s, rend 2, damage 1, scoring critical hits on 5s as long as you're into the right target. So if you get into an infantry unit with more than 5 models, these guys are going to be winners. I like that a lot. They do what they look like they're supposed to do, and they are just chopping down hordes of guys. So, big fan of that. And then, 3+ the wounds, so if you had a Guardian of Souls in there, you can easily make that 3s, 2s, 2, 1, critting on 5s. Yeah, I like that. I like that scroll a lot. They didn't do the Reapers dirty. We like that. Chainghasts. So they are 3 wounds each. Okay, that's nice. 12-inch, 4s, 3s, -2 and 1. Not great, but they never have been. It's just, you know, you just take their shooting. If they do a wound, they do a wound. Same with their combat. Another link in the chain. Roll a dice, add 1 to the roll if this unit is wholly within 12 inches of friendly Spirit Torments. On a 3+ for the rest of the turn. Add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Nighthaunt units while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. And how many points a chain? They are 100 points for 2. So they're quite cheap. But I don't know. I never really like these things where it's these abilities where it's like you have to roll the dice. I mean, I know if you take a Spirit Torment, we were just talking about if the Spirit Torment was even worth it before. So that's like 130 point tax on these guys who are already 100 points. So that's going to set you back 230 points to get that +1. And even then you can roll the 1 and not get +1 to hit. And you have to be wholly within 12 inches of the unit. And then these guys have to be wholly within 12 inches of the Spirit Torment. It just makes it messy. Like that's a whole lot of hoops to jump through to only get +1 to hit, and you could just spend a CP on 1-out attack. Or we saw with the Night Shrouds already, the Night Shrouds on foot or the Night Shrouds on steeds, depending what you're trying to give +1 to hit to. If it's infantry or cavalry or war machine, you just take the flavour of Night Shrouds as 140 points. He can do it on his own. he makes him fight, then a unit fight, and gives them +1 to hit. Whereas these are like 230 points, 2 units have to be within their bubbles, and you have to roll the dice. And yeah, I don't like these. I don't like them at all, really. Shame, because they're nice models. The whole Nighthaunt range is nice models, let's be honest. Chain Rasps. Okay, so here we are. 1 wound, 5 up save still, which is fine. 2s, 4s, 5s, no rend 1 damage, crit auto wound, +1 to wound rolls if they charged. Ooh, and they are 100 points for 10. So they are still the cheapest chips, bottom of the barrel kind of option. You know, flood the board with these guys, reinforce them up to groups of 20. I don't know, I've always wanted to like Chain Rasps, I've always wanted to like them, but I've just never been too sold. And now, I think before, because they used to be 4s and 4s, I know I said I wasn't going to compare, but like, this unit hasn't really changed at all. It's just cheap fodder, cheap screens. I always used to like it if I had like 100 points spare, I'd just take 10 of these guys just to put in my list. But before, we don't have underworlds anymore, I've noticed. We've got the battle formation that allows us to teleport units, but there's no starting them off the board and then just popping them up anywhere on the table anymore, which is what I used to love using Chain Rasp for. Your opponent leaves an objective unguarded, or you needed to be in certain parts of the table for battle tactics, etc. Like you could just 100 points, Chain Rasp, yep, pop them up, or just leave them on a battlefield objective, which is pretty much what they're always going to be doing now. But yeah, they're slightly worse at fighting, and yeah, that's it. They're just cheap screen fodder, like they always have been. So nothing to write home about for the Chain Rasps, but we didn't expect them to do too much anyway. The Black Coach. So this is one that I have seen. This got spoiled, so someone actually had the warscroll card in print. So it's movement 10, 12 wounds, 4 up save, 6+ ward. It now has all the weapons, which is nice because before you had to choose between the grasp or the scythe. So it's nice to just see that it has all its stuff. This is how it always should have been. It can shoot in combat, 2s, 4s, 3s, rend 2, damage 2. So yeah, nothing crazy. Like if you get a wound off with that, it's nice. Wraith weapons, 3s, 3s, rend 2, 2. Yeah, so it all adds up. And it can shoot in combat as well, so like you're always going to be getting these extra 2. So you charge into something, and then the steeds and the relic bearers are just, yeah, what if you get some extra damage in. But the main 2 profiles are pretty good. Runaway Coach. If this unit declared a charge this phase, pick an enemy unit within 1 inch, roll a d3 on a 2+. So it does impact hits, which is always nice. So you get impact hits, and then you get all your damage on top. Movement phase, Nimbus of Power. If this unit is not in combat, remove it from the battlefield. Set it up again on the battlefield more than that, so it can have the teleport. So this is what I expect. This is what I thought was on the Dreadblade Harrows. If this unit is not in combat, remove it from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches. So that's why I read the Dreadblades as in my brain, because that's kind of just how it was. So he can teleport. So again, he can set up nicely for battle tactics and things, take their lands, secure the flank, etc., etc. Even just teleporting to somewhere else to be a pain. What else does it do? If this unit destroyed any enemy units, pick a friendly, non-unique. Yes, so that's really cool. You can bring back your small non-unique heroes, so like your Guardian of Souls, Lord Executioners, things. If they get killed, and then your Black Coach comes in and manages to destroy a unit, so you could do that through any of these, the shooting attack, the combat attacks, even the Runaway Coach at the end of the turn. So if you kill them with any of this, so you've got a lot of chances to try and get something in, then you can actually replace your smaller destroyed heroes. And the Black Coach is only 260 now. So if you think he's 260 points and then you manage to pull that off, you get the last wound through on a unit, you kill a small hero like with your impact hits and that. Because I mean, this profile, as much as it isn't crazy, against like a 5 wound wizard kind of unit, that kind of level of, you know, someone who's only got a 4 or 5 up save, no ward, etc., 5 wounds, a Black Coach, if they manage to get the charge off, which with a 10-inch move, being able to teleport, those kind of things is not the hardest thing in the world to do. If the lines open up and the coach manages to fly up over the back and then get a charge in, you can kill a small hero really easily. You destroy the unit, and then you get to summon your hero back. So like, if you're taking the Guardian of Souls, for example, Guardian of Souls is 140 points. The Black Coach is only 260 for itself, so it's paid 140 points of its own thing back, bringing the Guardian back. And the Guardian, the reason I chose the Guardian is a really good example is because I was saying about how the Guardian is having to be in that danger zone because it now has to be in combat to give out the +1 wound bubble. So something like that is going to be really susceptible to just being punched in the face and killed straight away, and the Black Coach can now bring him back to life. So that's nice. That's really nice. 12 wounds, 4 up save, 6+ ward, so you've got about 25, 26 health on a Black Coach, assuming you get all your saves and wards, like nothing cuts straight through either or. You've got to be careful with it though, because again, healing, we still haven't seen any healing. I think we've seen all the heroes now. No healing for the Coach, which was a problem with it last time. Last time it was a lot more tankier, because you used to build up the captured energy points, and then it would get that like Super Saiyan ward as it was going. Even if you take this in the sub-faction where the Black Coach gives out a 5+ ward, it doesn't actually give it to itself because it's not an infantry unit, it's a war machine. So it's only going to get the buffed ward on a Discorporate, so you're going to have to spend CP to make it more tanky, and it has no other ways to buff itself. So it's definitely less tanky than it was, but this ability here is cool. But setting it up might be difficult because you have to get your thing killed, then have to kill something afterwards and not get yourself killed. And the Black Coach is always like the pin cushion for everything. Like, people have shooting or like high damage magic, always just goes into the Black Coach. And now that we can't heal it, we can rally with a Black Coach, which just seems really weird. Like, the concept of rallying the Black Coach is just like, I don't know. The coach driver's given a pep talk to the ghosts and that floating around it, like, come on guys, we can do this. He just bigs himself up, rallying speech. This is the only way to heal it, and then obviously we can use the Spirit Torment to heal that a bit more. But yeah, I don't know, keeping the Black Coach alive long enough to actually get the Invocation to Death is questionable, but it's a big thing. It's really cool. It's amazing to have one. It's not expensive, so even if it does die, to be honest, it's not the worst. You get some impact hots off, you get some things, you charge this in. You never send a Black Coach in alone. You treat this almost like a support unit, so you want something like Hex Wraiths with it, or you know, the Night Shrouds on Steed, or a big unit of Ghosts just to stay with it. And then this is just like the cherry on the top of whatever the thing that you've paired it up with. That's how I've always played my Black Coaches. Just never really let them go solo until like the late game if they really need to, but they're just big distraction card effects pieces in my opinion. But yeah, I quite like that. The Invocation of Death is cool. It's unique. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that for Nighthaunt before, bring back small heroes. So yeah, we'll have to play around with it and see, but I question its survivability to be able to get that off. But even without it, it's fine. It looks cool, and I'll probably always have a Black Coach on my list because it's a Black Coach. Craven Throne Guard. So these guys are now 16-inch range on their crossbows, 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, 1/1 crit auto wound. So the range isn't bad. They got multiple attacks. Combat is just 4s, no rend. This unit can pick enemy units to be the targets of shooting attacks, even if they are not visible to this unit. In addition, ignore negative modifiers to hit rolls. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I quite like that. So you can shoot things that you can't see, which is what we had before. So like you could be standing behind terrain, anything that's like obscuring or just anything like that. So you can still shoot them. 16 inches. Once you add in your 8-inch move, gives you an effective like 24-inch range. That's actually on the higher end of things in Sigmar. A lot of the things are like 18-inch range. With like a 6-inch move, so I mean it balances out. They're a mid-ranged unit. Things that are like 24 inches to me are like mid-range. Anything lower than that kind of threat range, so it's usually things that are like 12-inch, 10-inch thing of what I'd call short ranges, and then anything that's like 30 plus, so that's normally like big war machines and things. So that's a respectable thing. 24-inch threat range. You can shoot things that you can't see, and you're ignoring negative modifiers to hit. So I think that means if you use the out of sequence command, I can't remember the names of the commands just yet, but it's the one you get to shoot in the enemy's phase, then they're not going to be -1 to hit, so they're still 4s, 3s, rend 1, damage 1. They are, how many points are they? They are 100 points for 5, so they're still pretty cheap, to be honest, but I suppose 1 wound each. 5 of them aren't going to stand up to anything, but that could be good. These are decent to just have sitting on like mid-board objectives, just kind of doing their own thing. If you bring Alrich, these could be nice. As long as you keep Alrich out of combat, you just keep teleporting them away. Reinforce a unit up to 10. 200 points. You're going to be firing 20 shots, always on 4s and 3s. So yeah, they're still a great harassing unit. Still got some decent range on them. Still going to have some nice synergies. So yeah, I think they still pretty much do what they did. Next up, Bladegeist Revenants. So this is another one of the big 3. So between Grimghast, Bladegeist, and Dread Scythe, it's like, which one are you going to go for? It's always been the thing. So 2 attacks, 3s, 3s, 1 and 1, crit auto wound. So yeah, so they've got the better hit than the Reapers, but they don't have any of the toys. What's their... If this unit charged, add 1 to the attacks characteristics of this unit's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. So they go up to 3 attacks, 3s, 3s. So they are... That's steady. That's a really nice profile. Bladegeist is still really good. That's one of the... So Reapers look like they are situationally stronger, because they have to be fighting more than 5 enemies and they have to be fighting infantry, whereas Bladegeist, they don't care. Like, they're fighting on 2s, 3s, 3s, 1, 1, regardless of the enemy hero, cavalry, infantry, and then they're always getting their +1 attack as long as they charge, which between the Wave of Terror, so even if you're engaged in combat you can still recharge a unit that you're in combat with, and then the retreat and charge subfaction. So these guys are still going to do what they did. They're going to be everywhere, and just they want to be charging all the time and just being a thorn in the side, and they are just really good against all comers. So I think the Reapers probably pip them if you know you're fighting blobs of infantry, but Bladegeist are just better versus everything, I think. So yeah, I really like that. Really like Revenants. They're going to synergize really well with some of the smaller hero buffs. You give them +1 to hit or +1 to wound, so a Guardian of Souls in these guys, you know, and a all-out attack or something like that, or a Knight of Shrouds on foot and a Guardian of Souls. You can easily get these guys to like 3 attacks, 2s and 2s, rend 1, damage 1. Chuck a Purple Sun into your list. You could be 3 attacks, 2s, 2s, rend 2, damage 1. So that could be nice to flank in a cavalry or a war machine. Now we're really pushing it. Line in the stars. But if you were to get the -1 to save off from your Aura of Dread, then yeah, you could really skyrocket some Bladegeist. And even if they hit you with the minuses, you know, if you give yourself +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and they hit you with a -1 hit, -1 wound, you're still just going to be sitting on that nice 3s and 3s. So these guys are going to be consistent. They're going to be really good, and they're a really nice buff piece. So I like Bladegeist. They're going to be strong. They're still going to be very popular, I think. Glaive Race Stalkers. So these guys what used to be pants. 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, 1, 1, +1 damage when they charge. Point of Death. Pick an enemy unit so you do this in the deployment. Pick an enemy unit to be the target. They have the stalked keyword for the rest of the battle. Add 2 to charge rolls for this unit made as part of that ability, but this unit must end the move in combat with the stalk. Okay, so you basically, in deployment, you pick a unit, you give them the stalked keyword, you add 2 to the charge rolls as long as they are ending the charge move in range of the stalked unit. So they get +2 to charge as long as they charge the thing that's stalked. They are how many points? 80 points, so they are nice and cheap. Excuse me. But there's still only 4 of them. So they reinforce up to units of 8. They're 1 wound, 4. Yeah, I probably wouldn't bother with these guys. If you want cheap bodies to go onto an objective or something, just take 10 chain rasps. Pay the extra 20 points. Take the chain rasps, I think. Because there's nothing but these. I mean, because if you're taking them in the minimum unit, the chances are that the thing that's stalked isn't going to be scared of 4 of these guys. Even at 2 attacks, 2 damage on the charge. There's a lot of -1 to hit going around in the game. So things that are 4+ to hit do worry me slightly. There's a lot of strike first, strike last, and -1 to hit floating around. So like these guys, probably going to be like 5s, 3s. And if you've only got 4 of them, they're going to get 8 attacks, 80 points. You might as well just to take the chain rasps and go for the weighted dice, because although chain rasps are 4s and 5s, like, so it's basically the other way around. There's 10 of them with 2 attacks, so you're throwing 20 dice versus the 8 just for a pip of rend and like 1 better on a stat. So yeah, I'd probably just say take chain rasps over these guys. There's still nothing to write home about, but you know, it's a shame because these are really cool, and I've always wanted these to be good, and they've never been good. I don't think there's ever been a chance where I wanted to take them, but we'll have to see. Next up, Mirmorn Banshees. So this is another one. I think this is the last unit that we saw on the faction focus. So we've already seen these slightly there. 2 health apiece. And it was interesting to see actually that Reapers and Harridans and Revenants are still 1 wound, because when we saw this on the faction focus, everyone was like, oh, we might have 2 wound big ghosts. And it's like, it would be interesting to see how that reacted with the heals. But I'm glad that the others are still only 1 health each, because seeing the way that the healing's working, and the way that rally works, like just bringing back more models with 1 health is better, because especially on those multi-wound guys, so like a Blade Geist Revenant has 2 attacks. If you heal a D6, sorry, and you roll a 3, you bring 3 guys back. That's 6 attacks worth of guys. But if you rolled a 3 on a D6, you're only bringing 1 back if they were 2 health each, and that's only worth 2 attacks. So although they're tankier health-wise, I'm probably really butchering the explanation on this. If they're healthier tank-wise, but you get more attacks per body, even with the lower health. So bringing back more guys with less health is more attacks. So it's better on the offensive front, I think, to have low health. But Mirmorns on 2s are great because these are still smaller units. They come in 4s, reinforce up to 8. So even just having 8 of them now is 16 health, which with your 4+, 6+ is quite nice. The Chill Daggers are still really strong. 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 2, d3 damage. That can surprise a lot of people. A lot of people only see like a handful of Mirmorns, and they kind of... Everyone's so focused about this, like the Spell Eaters, the things that they could do to stop anti-magic, that they kind of slept on their damage potential. Then all of a sudden you're throwing like 8 guys with 16 attacks that are rend 2, d3 damage. Like, you can really spike that, and they can really be really nice surprise unit. Spell Eaters is if a friendly Nighthaunt unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit was picked to be the target of that spell, because it's a reaction, so you only use it when you get targeted by a spell. Friendly Nighthaunt unit wholly within 12 of this unit that was picked to be the target of a spell. This unit can use the Unbind ability as if it had a Wizard 1 and add 1 to the Unbinding roll for that ability. If the spell is unbound, d3 mortal damage to the caster. That's really nice. I really like that. I've seen the debate over this. I think you can only use this once per turn, because it's like they declare a spell, you use this, so you become Wizard 1, you make your Unbinding roll, but then you've used the thing, so you can't do this for like every time that someone gets targeted by a spell anymore, because the way that the rules were. I don't have it to hand what the exact thing was, but it's like the effect of this, that you can't use the same ability more than once. Basically, it's like in the rule of 1 somewhere. And then as you go further into the rule book, and it breaks down like things even further, so it might not be under the exact rule of 1 like in the opening pages, because it's only like 4 bullet points, but as you go further on, it's like certain abilities can only be used once under different stipulations. So you can't use this like 1 unit of Mirmorns can't try and stop every single spell coming into your list, but if you had 2 units of Mirmorns, each one could use it once. So that's cool, and bouncing damage back is really nice, especially again if they've got little 5 wound casters and you're in the sub-faction that like hurts enemy heroes as you get closer. That could be really scary. They're going to cast a spell 1 turn. If you unbound it and did d3 mortal damage to them, that's really going to make them think twice about casting a spell the next turn if your Mirmorns are still around, like protecting your big core units or your big strong heroes. So I really like that, and again their damage is really cool, and now they're even tankier than they were before. They are 120 points for 4. So not cheap, but not expensive. Not expensive at all. And again, you could probably just MSU these guys, just hide them in your lines, and even just if you get this off once or twice, that's going to be really nice and make the enemy think twice about throwing out spells with little heroes towards these guys or anyone that they are protecting. So you can really limit your opponent that way. Spirit Hosts, 3 wounds each for 6. They've got 6 attacks, Force 4s, no rend 1 damage, but they can auto wound like everybody can. Drawn to war, friendly Nighthaunt infantry heroes have a ward of 4+ while they are wholly within this unit's combat range. So if a infantry hero is within 3 inches of a spirit host, they have a 4+ ward, and that's really, really cool. Because so far, I think everything that we've looked at, apart from Lady O, who has a 4+ ward built in, is still a 6+ ward. So you're going to make them triple as efficient ward save. That's better than the ward save you get from the Black Coach. So that's better than the one from the sub-factions. So Spirit Hosts are still your infantry heroes' best friends. It's going to be weird to not have these paired up with Lady O anymore. I think I've always, ever since the first tome dropped and Lady O was a model, I think I've always run her with Spirit Hosts, just the way that Spirit Hosts used to work. But now she doesn't need this because she's already got a 4+ ward. So she can go with any other unit, and Spirit Hosts are going to be wanting to protect everyone else. So like your Kurdosses, any of your foot guys like Lord Executioners, Spirit Torments, etc., etc. They're the ones that are going to be wanting to be hugged by Spirit Hosts. They're 130 points for 3, so that's not bad. That's not a bad trade-off. Like I said, if you want to take someone like Kurdos, Spirit Hosts are really, really going to help him boost his survivability. And again, because we haven't seen that much healing, especially for heroes, healing units, bringing back dead 1-wound models, fine. But keeping heroes alive is going to be difficult, so I think Spirit Host is still going to play a big role for all of those other foot heroes, just not Lady O, because she doesn't need it anymore. Dread Scythe Harridans. 3 attacks, 4s, rend 1, 1 damage, crit auto wound. Add 1 to hit and wound rolls for this unit's combat attacks while it is in combat with any damaged enemy units, or while it is in combat with any enemy units that had any models slain in the same turn. So that's pretty much the same buff that they had before, so this becomes 3s and 3s. If they're fighting something that's got multi-wounds, like a multi-wound, so like a Mega Gargant, and it's taken damage, then they're going to get +1 hit, +1 wound. Or if you're fighting like 1-wound infantry units, it's not if something's been slain, unless it's been slain that turn. So you'd have to kill something in your hero phase, or with a shooting attack, or if something else charged into that unit and it did like impact hits, so like the Black Coach, and you killed something with an impact hit, then they'll get that buff that turn. So you get them 3 attacks, 3s, 3s, and also they are -1 to wound rolls if they charged in the same turn while they're in combat with enemies. So that's cool. So that so it's so between them, Reapers and Blades, I still think Blades probably pip these guys just because Blades are so much more consistent. Dread Scythe and Grimghast are like if the stars align. So these guys are probably the best, I think, if you pull this off and you pull this off, because they're the tankiest one, because they're all 4+ ethereal save, 6+ ward, but these guys can get -1 to wound. They can all use the Aura of Dread to be -1 to hit. So these guys can be -1 to hit, -1 to wound, whereas the others are only -1 to hit. These guys also get better, but only if you've killed something before, whereas like the Blades only just need to charge. And then if you were to start adding, you can add all the same buffs to all of them, so like Purple Suns, etc, etc. Although saying that, these guys, if they get, because of the rule where you can only buff your stats by 1 unless it's rend or attacks, Blades can get down to that 2s and 2s with things like the Guardian of Souls and like an all-out attack. So yeah, I think Harridan's probably on the short end of the stick, actually breaking it down. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to test them. I have to test all 3 and see how they go. I really like Harridans. They're always really cool, like model-wise, and the idea behind that they just go berserk and just want to rip things up. And then as things, start bleeding around them, then they're like sharks and go into a super frenzy, or like a shark myth. So yeah, I still think Blades are probably the best. Then Grimghast Reapers if they get into the right target. Then Harridans. I think I'd probably say is what I'm going now that I've seen all 3 of them. That's what my gut's telling me. But yeah, I know I do like this scroll. I like all 3 scrolls. They're all good in their own ways. It just depends. You sort of have to pick your poison of which one you want to try and buff up really, because like these guys, if you've got things like the Black Coach or Chain Ghast, you know, lots of things with the little shooting attacks like a Tomb Banshee, then you can set these up super easily, and then you can make them tankier, whereas the others are easier to stack up, but they're like just good on the aggressive, whereas these guys can do both. You can take 20 of them, boost them up to high heavens, and make them tanky, but you just have to really focus in on them. So yeah, no, I like that scroll, and that's what I'm going with for my gut thing. Blades, Grimghast, then Harridans. So we'll see. Hex Wraiths. Oh, so I think this is the last unit that we have to cover, and then we've just got spells. So Hex Wraiths, they are now 3 wounds each, which is nice. Control score of 2. 4 plus save. Spectral Scythe is 2 attacks, 4s, rend 1, damage 1, plus 1 damage on the charge. The horses are 3 attacks, so you get a nice weighted dice with the horses. They have the crit auto wound as well, which is really nice. So half the time that you hit with the horses, you're going to get auto wounds. And these going up to damage 2 is not terrible. They've kept their impact hits. If this unit charge, pick one on a 2+ and flip that amount of mortal damage. So they're nice. Hex Wraiths are nice. They are 160 points for 5. They are movement 12, which is good movement. Movement 12 with fly is always nice. They've lost the double move, so they used to be able to like not be able to charge for a turn, but move twice as much. So they do like a 24-inch move, and you could just box things in or get to an objective first. They've lost that, but at 3 health, they'll make a good roadblock. And I think in the retreat, these guys are going to really benefit from the retreat and charge subfaction, because you always want to be using this, and you always want to be doing the extra damage. And although you can use Wave of Terror, and you'll still be like able to charge even if you physically don't like move away and charge someone else, you know, so you'll still be benefiting from these. I think just the fact that, you know, Hex Wraiths are so good against those sort of weak attacks. These are great at like getting into people's backlines and just harassing the sort of weaker support units, because they're not like outright, you know, they're not like a unit of buffed up blade geists who just want to be blendering things. These aren't hammers as such, but if they find the right soft sort of target, then between their impact hits and damage 2 strikes, like they can still pile on some hurt. But these aren't going to be going through like any sort of these are great at like smashing screens, support heroes, those kind of things, but they're not going to be going against any sort of like anvil units, things that want to take a hit. You know, they're not your classic line breakers. And if you can sort of charge into something, do a few mortals, do a few damage, and then you sort of hop over the top of them and then get into those sort of juicier targets, then that's where Hex Wraiths always shined. And even without that super turbo move, they're going to do this perfectly. So I think if you're playing the retreat and charge subfaction, the Deathstalkers one, or battle formation, sorry, I'm going to be saying subfaction a lot. Yeah, these guys are going to be really, really good at that. And with 3 health each, like even a unit of 5 at 160 points is still 15 wounds with a 4 up ethereal save, so that's 30 wounds that you have to chew through on their save, plus their 6+ ward, so you're looking at more like 32 wounds on average if they're getting all their saves and things, like if you don't hit them with mortals or anything. So that's just to kill 160 points worth of 5 guys. So yeah, no, Hex Wraiths is still really good, really solid. So yeah, it's not bad. Always going to want a unit or 2 of Hex Wraiths, I think, in a list. And now we are on to the endless spells. So we saw the setup parameters for them before, and they're all 6 to cast. The Terminexus. So now we've got the different thing, haven't we, where the manifestations, they have health and saves and things, because you can actually just attack these in combat and shoot them and hit them with things like that. Or this bit here, their banishment, is what they would need to, if their wizard wanted to basically unbind them after you've summoned them up. That's what they'd need. Or they just inflict 6 damage on them. Has a 4-up save, 6-up ward, so it's just like any other Nighthaunt. And it has 2 effects. Or 1 effect, 2 different things. Pick a visible Nighthaunt unit within 3 inches of this manifestation to be the target. Roll a dice on a 2+, pick one of the following effects. Roll. Add 1 to run and charge rolls for the target unit for the rest of the turn. Not bad, not great. And heal 3 to the... oh, okay, so this is the first thing I think we've seen that just has a flat heal. All book. I think we've seen lots of return slain models, and I think other than the Spirit Torment adding to rally rolls, this is the first just heal. If memory serves me right, this is a long, long video. If you've stayed with me from the beginning all the way to here, I tip my hat to you. But yeah, I think this is the first heal that we've seen. It doesn't move either, so this is you would cast the Terminexus now. The Terminexus pops up within the range. I think it was 12. I can't remember without scrolling all the way back. Yeah, it was like set up anywhere within 12 or 9, but it didn't have to be away from enemies, so you can cast this like next to your heroes and things if they're in combat. But then you have to be within 3 inches of the Terminexus in your hero phase, and roll a dice to get the 2+. So it's like not only do you have to cast it, but then it's like if this just had a move, it's really easy to kill as well. 6 wounds with a 6 wounds with a 4-up. It's Nighthaunt keyworded, so I would assume I'd have to double check how manifestations work, because I know they don't count as units for like a lot of things. It's like only when they're moving or fighting or something like that. So I don't know if the Terminexus is ethereal. We'll have to double check that one. So it might be tanky. Like if this is 6 wounds with a 4-up ethereal and a 6-up ward, then that's fairly tanky. If that's just a normal 4-up save, then not as much. But a 7 banishment isn't bad. It's cast on a 6, so it's harder to get rid of once it's already out. But it doesn't move. If this could move and like follow the black coach or like your heroes around like it used to, then this would still be good. I mean, I used to love it because it was like you could either heal or deal damage, and you just be chasing around your opponent's small heroes and using that and like the Emerald Host sub-factions to just be like, yeah, you can't run away from my mortal wounds. Gonna get you. Terminexus is gonna get you. But yeah, healing 3 is great. I think that's really nice. But not being able to move and having to be within 3 inches of it and roll the dice, it's like makes it feel bad, because it can fail and you have to be close to it to start with. So we shall see. Next up, Vault of Souls is another. So this one's got a hard banishment of 8. So once it's out, it's a lot harder to get rid of. 6 health, 4-up save, 6-up ward. Again, pretty tanky if that is ethereal. I don't know how that works with manifestations. I'll have to go and double check. Passive, Siphon Souls. Each time a model, friendly or enemy is slain within 12 inches of this manifestation, give this manifestation a soul point to a maximum of 6. At the end of any turn, declare if this manifestation has 6 soul points. Pick any number of enemy units within 6 inches of this unit to be the target. Roll a dice for each target on a 3+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll, then reset this manifestation's soul points to 0. Okay. So every time someone dies near it, friendly or enemy, he stacks up a point. When he gets to 6 points at the end of the turn, you pick as many enemy units within 6 inches of this as you can, roll a dice, and on a 3+, they would take 6 mortal wounds. On a 3+, inflict a number of... equal to the roll, sorry. So you get up to 6 points, you roll the dice. If you rolled a 4, it would go off because it's on a 3+. If you roll a 4, then you do 4 mortal damage, and you roll for each unit. So you'd be doing anywhere between 3 and 6 mortal damage to every unit within 6. When this thing gets to 6, then it goes back to 0. Then you do it all over again. That's not terrible. I mean, getting 6 kills, like if there's a big contested objective in the middle of the thing, and you've got like, 20 Grimghast Reapers, and they're fighting against like 20 squigs, and then you just pop the Vault of Souls right next to that combat. Like, this is going to do some nice damage to those squigs. If it triggers, because obviously you have to roll the 3+. So it's just like nice extra chip damage, and because the way that the manifestation lore is these days, so you have to take the Terminexus, the Vault of Souls, and you'll be taking the Reaper as your like 3 endless spells as a bundle. It's just got that utility thing. If you've already got the other spells out and you're already using them, and you've got nothing else to cast, and you've still got things to go because you've got like Lady O, Reikenor, and a Guardian of Souls, so you've got up to potentially 5 casts between the two of them. If Reikenor boosts himself, he's casting 2, she's casting 2, and the Guardian's casting 1. You got 5 spells to pick from. Then yeah, just putting this out next to a combat will just help you deal some damage. It'll be nice against heroes that have got like really good armor saves, because this is just straight up doing mortal wounds. Like doing 6 mortal wounds to Stormcast really hurts them because they love their armor, but you know, more often than not, without big buffs from like heroes and stuff, they don't often have really strong wards. So putting this on to like Annihilators or something could be really, really nice. And because it's friendly or enemy, and it's the end of a turn, even if you didn't do much in combat because you couldn't cut through their armor and they punched you back and killed a bunch of your guys, you can then blow up the Vault of Souls on them. So you can kind of punish them for killing your guys. So that's kind of nice. The last of the endless spells, the Shaiish Reaper. This is the one that can move. Movement 8, 7 health, 4 up save, 7 to banish it, has 1 attack, hits on a 3, wounds on a 2, does 2 rend and 4 damage, and it adds 2 to its attack's characteristics if it charged in the same turn. Again, because of the way manifestations work, but it has the keywords, I don't know if this benefits from the retreat and charge like sub-faction, because obviously you want this thing to always be charging. So I don't know if this thing can use Wave of Terror and retreat and charge. If it can, this is way, way better because you'll basically always be on 3 attacks. But yeah, Rend 2, 4 damage, that's a lot. 3s and 2s. I know you can't use things like all-out attack and stuff on the manifestations, they don't benefit from things like that. But I don't know about the others. I don't know about the Ethereal, and I don't know about the retreat and charge. But yeah, that can catch a lot of people off. 3 attacks, 3s, 2s, Rend 2, 4 damage. Like, because there's a lot of things in the Nighthaunt book that is, you know, not outright, objectively, horrifyingly amazing damage on its own, but you put like A, B, and C together and you charge them all at the same time, and once you stack in a few buffs and debuffs, and then your like mediocre attacks go on top of all of that sort of stuff, then you can be swinging. Because like the Shaiish Reaper is already Rend 2, 4 damage. If you charged a War Machine or a Cavalry into someone, hit them with the -1 to save, and you had... No, you can't have Purple Sun and this because you can only take 1 manifestation. But even if you hit them just with that, the stun from the Aura of Dread, -1 to save rolls, and then you hit them with this, so you basically like Rend 3, 4 damage. Like, where else are you getting that in the Nighthaunt book? Hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s as well. So I think I think the Reaper is actually probably the best out of the 3 endless spells, I'd say now. Maybe. The Terminexus is obviously still handy because it's the only thing that has a flat heal, so healing coaches, healing heroes. And 3, just a flat 3 heal is nice. You have to roll the 2+ to get it. So 1 in every 6 attempts, you're not going to do anything. But yeah, no, I like the Reaper. That's gonna catch some people off. I think the Vault of Souls is probably the worst spell of the lot. Let's have a quick look at the Terminexes again. Roll a dice. Visible friendly Nighthaunt. Pick a friendly Nighthaunt unit within 3. So it's no longer an AoE heal either. Ooh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we take our own manifestation lore anymore. I think you'd just be better off with like the Purple Sun. The morbid ones seem really popular. So that's Purple Sun, Gravetide, Shackles, and is it Maelstrom? I think it's called. It's basically like Vault of Souls, but everyone can get it, and it's on casting spells instead of wounds done, I think. But yeah, that is everything for the Nighthaunt. That is the entire Nighthaunt PDF that we've gone through. Just going back through some of the units here. What do you guys think? What are your favourite units from this PDF? What did they do to your favourite units? What do you think is going to be strong in these sort of early things? What are you looking to be building on? I think I'm going to have to come back through this a whole bunch of times. There's a few things that I don't know if anything really shines out. There's a few things in here that I don't like the look of, but that was only a handful of things, like Scriptor Mortis, Cruelgrast, the Cruciator, the Spirit Torment. But other than that, like everything else looked... It's always been a problem for Nighthaunt, is everything is pretty good. And the problem is, you can't fit it all in a list. So you have to really narrow down your choices on like which heroes and units you want to synergize with which. And it's not a case of like there's only one or two build paths and which one do you want. It's like all of this works, but I have to narrow it down because I can't fit it all in. So yeah, I'm really excited to be play testing some of this out, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the faction pack for the Nighthaunt and what you are expecting to be playing. Thank you so much if you stayed all the way to the end here. This has been a long video, but again, we've covered the entire faction pack. I will be releasing videos where I break down each unit individually. I'm just going to flick some more up on the screen here. So like once we've got a few games under our belt with certain units and we start to see things, we'll break down the battle traits even further. We'll break down the battle formations and like the spell laws and which units really synergize with which as and when the combos are coming up, and you know what's been working well and what hasn't. But yeah, this is kind of like a first reaction, first time I've been through the faction pack and really taking my time with it. I had a quick flick through, like I said at the start of this video, I had a quick flick through beforehand. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be playing some of this and seeing what we can cook up with these here. So thank you again, guys, so much for joining me with this faction review. I know it's been a long one, but I've been trying to put sort of more thoughts and effort into it rather than just reading straight off the scrolls, because obviously you guys can read all of that. So I've been trying to give you more of my insights and my thoughts into things, my early process into the Nighthaunt faction, to hopefully help drum up some ideas of what might be good and what might be left to the side for the moment. But let me know what your thoughts are. Join the Discord. I have a Lakey Wargames Discord, completely free to join, and let us know your thoughts in that or the comments down below. As always, thank you for watching, stay safe, and happy wargaming.